The No Nonsense Roundtable, a weekly radio show and podcast where host Dom Geneva interviews guests from all walks of life, all with amazing stories to tell. And now, here's your host, Dom Geneva.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of your No Nonsense Roundtable. I am here with a perennial guest, I guess it is. That's the way you use it. Is Mayor Malik Evans, the mayor of the city of Rochester, and you have been on. I think this is your sixth time on the show, Mayor.
Wow, is it six already? Time flies. You know, I always look forward to coming to talk to you. We always have great conversations. But I think you're going right because I think my first appearance was back in 2021. And I don't know where the time goes, but It's always good to be back with you.
Well, as being as old as I am, I learned one thing: time accelerates as you grow older. I mean, the years. My personal philosophy, being this old, is that I am pretending I'm going to live forever, and I'm only going to be wrong one day.
That's right.
I mean, that's it. You can't die twice. You know?
Well, my parents, God rest their soul, used to always say, you always plan for the future, but you live like you only got one day left, which gives you that energy to make sure that you get up and keep moving. Right. That's basically the goal.
Well, you just talked about your parents, and one thing that I see with you, because obviously going to your gala, I hear different people talking, and you have this God-given ability of engaging people when you speak. And it has to come from your dad being a preacher, I would think, because you actually connect with people. You give them an idea that sticks in their head, and you do a really good job. I have to say that. I'm not saying that just smoke at you, but some people have that talent. A lot of people don't.
Well, I try. I mean, I think it's important to kind of meet people where they are, but also to talk about things that are important to people. I think sometimes the further away you get from people, and you see this with a lot of other politicians, you forget that people care about literally a lot of the same things in the community. They want to make their community better. They care about what's important for their family, and those are the things that I think you really have to try to connect with people on. With the world that we live in now, we've kind of just gotten away from that. We talk about things that might be controversial or get clicks or get attention. But we forget about the average person. Whenever I talk to a group, I always say, what does the average person think about this? I call it the Mrs. Smith test. What does Mrs. Smith really care about? Because Mrs. Smith isn't watching the news regularly. She might be taking her kid or her grandson to school on a daily basis, going to a sporting event or going to a performance with their kid. That's what they're worried about. They're worried about, the things that are going to make their lives better, make them feel safe, make them feel secure in their future. And as we were talking about age, getting a little older, they want to make sure that their kids or grandkids or nieces or nephews that they're going to be okay. And I think that's what I try to focus in on whenever I try to connect with people, that you really have to get to the heart of the matter of things that are important for people.
Well, one of the things that I think we can agree on is that it's gotten harder because of social media. And I wrote an article for the Rochester Business Journal, and it was called "Social Media Myopia." And actually, I'm getting reads from a number of different people: Bob Duffy, Jeff Tyzik, Adam Bello, and the little segments are called "On the Record," and it's just to address this whole thing of the social media phenomenon that we have, because I think a lot of people don't see the checker on the other side of the checker on the second move. You say something and you don't understand the effect it has someplace else, and then you don't understand what the headwinds are of somebody else who happens to be making decisions. And give me your feeling, and I'll kind of expand on this after you give me your feeling about what's happening online lately.
Well, I think that it's gotten worse. I mean, even if you look at, around, I think I started getting engaged. I resisted social media for years. And I think I really started getting involved in social media around the first time around like 2007. And even then it was just a little bit, you had maybe one network out there. But I think that what it's done is that it's actually made us more lonely. And this is true because it plays itself out. Americans, I think the Surgeon General did something, was it 2 years ago? A study came out that said Americans are more lonely than they've ever been since they started keeping track of loneliness. And they attribute a lot of it to social media.
Yeah.
Because as I say to people, social media and I don't even like using the word social media because if you remember when social media first came out, it was really called social networking, in which you were supposed to connect with people to be together. It was supposed to be a form that would bring people
Mhm.
together, that you would connect online and then invariably you would meet offline after connecting with people. But that has not happened. But what's happened is that social media has actually polarized us more. It has
Yeah.
us in an echo chamber where people just, want to get clicks. And then the other thing is that now what we have is we have young people who used to grow up to say, I want to be a doctor or a lawyer or a flight attendant or a custodial engineer
Mhm.
or electrician. They're saying that they want to be influencers. I mean,
Right.
it's unbelievable. I'll go and I'll go to a school and I'll say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a YouTuber.
Hmm.
That's what they want to be. They want to be a YouTuber. There's nothing wrong with that, but at the same time, the question is that how do we get our young people to realize that the jobs that you want to do is to have a positive influence on people? Social media has had just a very, very
Hmm.
corrosive effect, particularly in politics, where it is no longer serious governing that often takes place. People now spend more of their time. Some offices of elected officials
Hmm.
at all different levels, they spend more money on social media engagement than actually policies that will actually help their broader community. And that is because that is what we have created, this cottage industry of outrageous things that we can say, things in which
Hmm.
we can get clicks. And that has really led to, I believe, the devaluing of conversations, the devaluing of actual connection, and the belief that social media is now gospel when it really is like monopoly money because much of it is not real. And how that has manifested itself is sometimes people posting things that they may or may not believe, but really just to be outrageous because they can monetize it. And I
Right.
think that has really created some major challenges in our society, and it's made people more vulnerable
Hmm.
to scams. It's made people more vulnerable to the negativity, and it really has not enhanced our community in a great way. I think social media could be good for some things, but what we're seeing now is not that. And I see it every day as someone that is involved and interested in public service.
Well, I see it this way from a marketing standpoint because that's my background. Is that what you've done is you've given voice now to the fringes.
That's right.
The voices of the people that think that the world is flat. They have the tinfoil on their head, thinking that they're getting raised from the planet Zeptor. Those people have just as much voice as anybody else does, and even more because it is outrageous, and it's made your job actually dangerous in
That's
a
right.
lot of cases, right? I mean, Adam Bella was telling me, he says on his show with me, he said, he says it was a gut check. It was a gut check when I was trying to encourage somebody to get into public service, a public office, and his wife said to him, this fella's wife said to him, says, "Do we want to really live like the Bellows?" I
Mm.
mean, and I see what you have to go through, with your job, and it's going to be, worse than that. I would imagine. I mean, this is going
Oh,
to
it
be
is.
this is going to be a hell of a drain on your family.
It is. It's a hell of a drain, hell on resources, the individuals, the threats that you get through social media from, to your point, sometimes fringe individuals, where 20 years ago, they would just be on the street or in their room by themselves yelling at the wall
Yeah.
or howling at the moon. They now can go online and put these things online that can be outrageous.
Hmm.
And that has and I think that is the challenge that we are dealing with. It is become where it could be used as a force for good. And there are some good stuff. Don't get me wrong. There's some great things on social media. I love music.
Hmm.
I'm a big music guy, and there's some great things that I look at on Instagram that are mainly about music. Throwback songs and I like
Hmm.
history. But almost none of that stuff gets the level of engagement as the outrageous stuff. You know,
Right.
so there's
Yeah.
some great stuff that I love on social media that I follow that are like this day in history, where it gives like, historical speeches or things that happened, or technology stuff from back in the day, or nostalgic music, and they interview musicians about their music. Now that stuff is great. It gets some good play, but not as much play as that crazy, outrageous yelling and screaming and just saying outrageous things, the cursing. That's a new
Oh.
thing now, where now people think it's cool, and even some elected officials.
Yeah.
Even some of my own fellow elected officials think that it's cool to curse because that's now relatable to people.
Well,
Where before you would curse, I may say a curse word every now and then, but I'm not saying it
yeah, yeah.
online or in public where my kids can hear me say it, where they would say dad language, right? But now that's fine to curse on social media because that makes you feel like or in public because now that's how you relate to people because the average person wants to hear you curse and that's relatable now. I mean, it's
Yeah.
wild.
No, I hear you. I mean, that's
It's wild.
oh God, I have to tell you because I am not anywhere as into this or exposed as much as you are with it. But you know the guy who and not my words, sends me a text calling me because he doesn't agree with me with calling me a homo and a broad. Like you know, like are you out of your mind putting that in a text? If that went to other people in the community, you would be ruined. And of course,
Well,
that's not my style. I'm not gonna
yeah,
do
it's
that. But
unbelievable.
you have to be out of your mind.
Right. And I think that some people do things that are out of character. And I remind young people whenever I go to a school, I love going to schools, talking to young people.
Yeah.
I do workshops. Back in the day, I would do workshops for young people, just people in general on, online etiquette and these things that you do. And one of the things I say is if you type an email or text or post on social media, pretend like your mother, grandmother,
Yeah.
godmother are going to read it and
Mhm.
that they're going to see it. But that hasn't stopped these people. I mean, they just say the most outrageous,
Yeah.
crazy things, and they do it because some of it is what we call clickbait, where they think that
Yeah.
it's gonna be a reaction. But
Mhm.
here's the thing: even after you delete it, it lives on forever because I
Mhm.
can screenshot it. I take your
Yeah.
phone and you screenshot it, so
Mhm.
even after it's down, you have it forever. And
Right.
so it's really also remove people's filter and what makes me upset sometimes about some of this is people say, "Oh, that's just people being real. They're being relatable." Really? Being rude and disrespectful and nasty, that's now relatable. God help us if that's the new way of being relatable, because what message are we sending to future generations? We will have a whole generation of young people that are growing
Mhm.
up now that are going to think that that is the norm on social media to say outrageous and vulgar things to people or start trivial fights and arguments back and forth. That's how we do our discourse. And the other thing
Mhm.
I notice is that there are people who would trash me on social media, and then I see them at an event, and they will actually come up to me and shake my hand. I mean, it's really unbelievable, and think that I didn't see it, that my staff didn't show it to me, and they say, "Hello, hello, hey, Mayor, how's it going? I love to get together and talk to you."
No,
As
you
if
are.
I live. It's unbelievable.
You are so right. You are.
It's
I don't want to.
unbelievable.
I don't want to say what event it was. I don't want to say what event it was. But there was somebody who doesn't like you. Okay, and he gets up and he says he's blowing. Oh, Mayor, the thing that you. It's like, does he know that doesn't he know that? Now here's the other thing about this myopia thing, is that they talk about the checker on the second move. Okay, and I talked to Jeff Tyzik about this. Just because, and he said just because you have a microphone doesn't make your opinion better than anybody else's.
Exactly.
I got that. Okay, but then you'll have somebody who's on the board of directors of some music association, or you'll have a performer, and they'll go and trash somebody. Let's say it's Trump. Okay, I don't like this. Blah blah blah. He said this, and he said all these nasty things about Trump. But then they look for donations and ticket sales. Okay, now you can do that if you're Bruce Springsteen and you have enough juice in your in your kit to gas in the tank maybe to survive that. But you don't know who you're alienating. When I was a car dealer, I had to sell cars to Republicans and Democrats. I mean that's just the way it is. And so if you are willing to pay the price, this is my deal with that. That is fine. I gotta say what I'm gonna say no matter what. That is fine. But you might have a price to pay for that. And
Well, free speech.
you're telling people that, well, if you really knew the way I felt, you would hate me. You don't know that you would hate me if you knew the way I felt about this particular matter. So it's myopia. It's such short-sightedness.
But
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna say what I tell people about free speech is free. You can say whatever you want. but you have to be willing to live with the consequences of what you say.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I tell my kids all the time. I said, free speech is that's America, right?
Right.
I keep a copy right here of the U.S. Constitution. I mean, I know we're on air,
Mhm.
but this is a copy of the U.S. Constitution. I keep with me. I have one in my car. I have one in my bag, and you have the right of freedom of speech. But
Mhm.
remember, you can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater, because if you yell fire in a crowded movie theater, there's a consequence that can come from that will
Yes.
get you. So if you say something, and this goes for anybody, if you
Mhm.
say something that is crazy, yeah, you can say it, but the consequence may be that I may not want to deal with you again because you're
Mhm.
saying something that is just totally outrageous, or you let me know how you really think. So while we have free speech, and while the social media is allows you to do free speech, your words can have consequences. And a lot of young students have seen that when they've gone to go get their college applications or gone to
Mhm.
want to go get a job, and then they pull up all these things that they tweeted about, and it's just outrageous, crazy things that they have said, and then it's damaged their reputation. So I think my message for particularly young people on social media is, um, look before you leap.
Mhm.
Look before you leap, and be thoughtful and mindful about what it is that you post.
Well, and the thing is, you have to be able to absorb the heat yourself without getting engaged with it. You got to separate yourself between the person and and the concept. I mean, you and I can disagree about so many different things, but that doesn't mean that one of us is right and one of us is wrong. You have two different opinions, and it shouldn't be. There's two things that I see that are really bad. Is one is ad hominems. It's like, oh, this guy is a jerk. So consequently, okay, he might be a jerk. Okay, however, what he's proposing is something good for everybody. Okay, so you can't just discount that. But the other thing, that's a straw man thing. Well, if you believe this, you must believe that. That's not necessarily true. The other thing that I see, I've come to the conclusion that there are people that want to put blame. There are things that um, are not our fault, but it's still our responsibility. Okay, so you have a lot of social injustice that has been handed down from generation to generation, but that is something that we inherited. We inherited the state of the schools and injustices in the past. We've inherited that, but it's not our fault. So don't blame me for that. We still need to work on that, but it's not my fault. So let's get together, see what we can agree on, because there's and like my speech number 327 is this. Okay, there's only two ways of getting something done, Malik, and I think you will subscribe to this. You either need cooperation or domination. That's the only two ways you can get things done. Either you have enough votes yourself to get your agenda passed, right? Or you need cooperation. And cooperation now is like virtually non-existent.
But it's non-existent because people have, to your point, they have made cooperation look like a weakness, and I'm
Yes.
hoping that the pendulum will swing back to a day when we can think that in order to accomplish and get something done, that you have to
Mhm.
have cooperation. The other thing that is very slick that people will use, and they use it for their own power, is that they will try to find ways to divide people over a topic when you say, okay, instead of let's fixing, we agree, and there's data on this. I mean, I've read this,
Mhm. Yeah,
read
yeah.
articles about this, that you will have people that where they will agree on 99% of something that they think needs to be solved, like literally.
Hmm.
Democrat, Republican, liberal, they will agree on 99%, but they won't do it because 1% they disagree with. So
Hmm.
therefore, everything just gets blown up. It's
Hmm.
a
Yeah.
weird
Yep.
dynamic
Yep.
um,
Yep.
that we have to figure out how we overcome it. People have done it years ago. I mean, people forget. People forget that we cured polio, that we were able
Yeah.
to pass the Civil Rights Act in 1965, um,
Yeah.
when the country was. So we were able to do more then than now. And so people need to
Hmm.
pause and ask, why is that? What's happening now? And the difference is that now we have an echo chamber of social media, 24/7 news channels,
Hmm.
where it is now easier to just make noise, not get anything done, and you still can make money off of it. I mean,
Oh
you
yeah.
literally, you literally have people that will go on the floor of the U.S. Congress and give a speech and then fundraise off of it right after on both sides of the aisle. I mean, so we now reward just showmanship. And the question is that do you want showmanship or do you want to show up for the American people? Do you want showmanship or you want to show up for the people in your neighborhood? Do you want showmanship or do you want to show up for good schools? Do you want showmanship or do you want to show up for economic empowerment in neighborhoods that are hurting for hundreds of years across our community? I believe that people want folks that are going to show up for them. But because of the way the system is set up, it's now just these people who I call that are social media stars. They haven't done anything. They haven't done anything of substance in terms of solving problems for the American people. And it's all show. And it's all me and you and others. We're left saying, can we get something done? How is China eating our lunch? I mean, I was at a conference overseas, and I mean, we are falling behind some of the technology. One of the CEOs of the large car companies he's got this thing where he's getting cars from China to reverse the technology to see what they have. Mm-hmm. We are falling behind, and we need to address that as a country. But how do you address that as a country when we spend all our time yelling at each other and being on social media? That's not getting anything done.
Well, I have an expression: "Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good."
Right.
I mean, and nothing's perfect. I mean,
there's only one perfect man that I know of, and he's in heaven above.
He got crucified. Yeah, he got crucified. And that's the other thing is that you have to have the my dad would call you have to have the intestinal fortitude to put up with that stuff because not everybody's going to like you.
Right.
I have some. It's amazing to me that I have garnered some people in Rochester that really. I started, I don't want to make myself out to be a victim, but like a few years ago, I tried starting this Rochester honors thing, right? So we get everybody together. It's not just music, but it's performing arts and everything like that. You wouldn't believe the people that came out. It's like, oh my God. It's like, I got a little bit of a taste of what you have. I can't deal with that.
Yeah, no, it's tough.
I went down in flames because everybody's like, well, you can't do that because of this. Way you can't do that because of that. You can't. Okay.
I tell people on my job, Dom, I tell people you have to have extremely thick skin because I mean, I remember when I wanted to plant 6,000 trees, which we did. That was our goal.
Yeah.
It's a simple goal to plant 6,000 trees in 3.5 years. We exceeded that goal. We got it done. Yeah. But there were people that couldn't believe it. I mean, and that was just so negative about it. Why does he want to do it? What is he going to do? And then I planted it in neighborhoods where there were not a large tree count. Yeah. And something as simple as planting a tree, the Chinese say the best time to plant a tree was 50 years ago. The second best time is right now. So I said, right now, we're going to plant these trees. It increases home value. It helps with asthma. It adds to the beautification of things. We plant native trees in our community. I mean, this adds to the value. I mean, when you buy a home, you live in tree-lined neighborhoods. That's what people want. I thought it would be a slam dunk. We actually had to do an education session. I had to hire tree ambassadors to explain to people why it was a good thing to plant trees. So something that simple was met with pushback and negativity on social media. And now it's done. It's positive. But think about that. So imagine if it's something more difficult. It's something more hard to do. Yeah. So something as hard as wanting to, something as easy and simple as wanting to plant trees was met with, but we overcame it. Now that's the thing. You have to overcome it because if you're doing the right thing, you know that you have to do it. Mm-hmm. That you have to continue to press through. You can't back down. That's the other challenge. If it's right, and you have to listen to the concerns. So what we heard some of the concerns. So what did I do? I said, you know what? We're hiring people in the community to go educate and let people know why this is important from an economic development standpoint, from a health standpoint, from a beauty standpoint, and we ended up being able to do it. But imagine if I would have listened to that backlash, we wouldn't have accomplished this goal.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, well, it has to do with like political capital and whatever. I don't have the ability to do that because I'm not in a position of power or influence. But there's plenty of people, plenty of people who feel that way. And one of the things that I see is the uh, back in the day, I had somebody on the show, Carol Crosser. Carol owns the original birthplace of Susan B. Anthony in
Mm.
Massachusetts, and
Wow.
an incredible woman with an incredible career and an incredible organization that she has. It's Feminists Choosing Life. A great organization, at least in my mind. And the she was saying that she after the show, she's telling me, well, we used to do protesting back in the day, back in the 60s. Says the March on Washington and whatever. Says my job was to teach people how to get arrested.
Mm.
That was
Yeah,
her
yeah,
job. And she's about like she's older than me. So how
yeah.
to get arrested. And she goes, it was non-violent. It was a garbage strike. It was a march where you got, unfortunately you got beat up, but you weren't beating up on the police. It was a completely different atmosphere back then. And it was in the umbrella of what Martin Luther King and what Gandhi would purport, and not this thing now where people are getting together. And the thing that I look at is that JFK, he said, don't ask what your country can do for you. Ask for
Oh,
what
what you can
you
do
can
for
do
your
for your
country.
country. So I get that the kings, no kings and whatever, but you know what? Go out and get people to register her vote to vote the way that you want or whatever. There's got to be something specific out of these protests and whatever. And one of the things, you got to read this book that I picked up. I interviewed the guy that wrote this, and it was called "How the Elites Stole the Social Justice Movement," and it's written by a guy called Frederick DeBauer. And he says these organizations that seem to be making a lot of money by collecting money for their cause, but the money doesn't really go to the people that need it or have any input to it. So, the whole thing is that we have, and I guess to put this in a nutshell, we've monetized discontent.
We've monetized discontent. We've monetized outrage.
Yeah,
And social media has helped to fuel that.
absolutely.
And the question that you have to ask any of these people, anybody, is what have you done to make a difference?
Right,
That's the bottom line
right.
in an appreciable way. And I can tell people when people ask me, I can pick 10, 20 things off the top of my head. Well, when I'm gone from here, I can say, you know what? I've
Mhm.
worked to eliminate almost every single lead pipe within the city of Rochester. I've planted over 6,000 trees. I made sure that we had record numbers of young people working. We have a record number of low homicides for the first time in decades that we've made, so I can tick through these things that I've planted seed
Mhm.
to try to make a difference. That we're launching next month, the first ever citywide children's savings account called Our Future Fund, where we're going to provide seed money for any kid that goes into kindergarten across the city of Rochester so they can learn about savings and financial literacy from kindergarten all the way up through high school. And then they're going to be able to take that money and use it to start a business, to go to college. Those are the types of things that we built more homes to make sure that we're having more homeowners than ever before. Affordable housing. These are the types of things that I'm able to measure and show on what I'm doing. But you know what? I probably could have a whole industry in which I just say outrageous things, monetize it, go around
Mhm.
speaking to people, getting paid for it, and having no appreciable impact at all. And that's kind of where we've gone as a country. And it's sad because the question is, what's the impact? What's the impact?
Well, let me give you a suggestion, a little something that maybe I can do for you, or for the city and whatever. I know that you would like to get more police recruits, right?
Absolutely. We just had an exam.
Yeah.
We just had an exam on Saturday. We got a decent number of folks.
Well, get the police chief to come on the show if you would, and we'll make a little because the show now. When I was on that other talk radio station, okay, I had 36 minutes, and the rest of it was taken by commercials for whatever. There were lawyers and home repair places and whatever. So now this WYSL has just as good a signal as WHAM in Rochester. I'm trying to let people know that, and I have 55 minutes, and I pay for the commercials myself. So there's
Mhm.
no commercials on this. This is just something I'm doing, just trying to do some good.
Yeah.
So what I can do for you is that, maybe, not an hour, whatever. Maybe I can get the sheriff on to talk about recruitment, and that can get out to people, as this is going to be a YouTube. That's why I like doing these by Zoom, because you can actually see the person. And some of these YouTubes I send out. There's one with Don Alhart. It's got 97,000 views, Malik. I
Yeah,
mean,
Don's a great guy and a great
yeah.
sport.
Yeah, the other thing. So let's get into a little bit of what I call it retail. What has happened? Tell me the things that have happened in the past year since I've seen you.
Yeah.
The good things that are going on, the things you want to talk about. We
Yeah.
got
Well,
the
I think
Lilac Festival here. You got to do something about this temperature, 45 degrees outside.
yeah, I mean, great. I mean, we've had great events. I mean, we're celebrating, and this is a great year. I call this is the year of the flower. Not only is it and is a great celebration for the Lilac Festival, but it's also the 50th anniversary of the City Mark, which
Hmm.
is the flower city. Our tag that you see. Rochester is one of the only cities that has a city mark. You see me wearing the
Hmm.
pin. You see it on our flags. You see it on buttons. You see it on people's bodies because they get tattoos. So we got the first ever Flower Fest coming
Hmm.
up, celebrating the City Mark logo, and that is going to be on June 6th. So that's something that we've been planning for years. We're very excited about that. There's actually a documentary that was produced, that's going to be previewed next week. That's going to talk about how this mark came to be. So that's coming up. We're excited about that. That's very good. And then we've had a lot of progress in terms of housing. We've built thousands of affordable housing units, and then our home ownership stuff is really moving in a great direction. Our Buy the Block Phase 3 is coming up, and that's our opportunity to build new homes on abandoned city lots. We now have
Hmm.
dozens and dozens of those. But we also have a pilot program now that we launched, in which we are building modular homes, manufactured homes on city lots, which brings the price down, because that's built in the factory, then they're placed there. So that's happened. We are very excited about the prospects of that's going on. And then, if you remember, 4 years ago when I first took office, we had the highest level of homicides that we've had. And
Hmm.
last year we had great progress, and so far this year we've only seen 2 homicides so far. So lots of progress. Still more work to do. It's never easy. We are excited about our Monroe County Rock Youth Career Network, where we again are having more young people put to work than ever. I think that is a very, very important item for us. We need to make sure that we have our young people working. I just launched something called the SCOT, which stands for School to Career Opportunity Task Force, in which I'm going to get a report from a group of people
Hmm.
across the community. We are looking at how we can make sure that the jobs that are here that go unfulfilled, how we can get people into those jobs, because that is how you change poverty. That is how you change
Hmm.
the economic ladder. We want to show people that you can move up the economic ladder if you get the right types of skills. And so the School to Career Opportunity Task Force is made up of businesses, of organizations that help people with workforce development. And we want to make sure that people in Rochester are put into jobs that are high quality. We have so many of these high quality jobs, but people may not have the skills for them. So the question
Hmm.
that's being asked is, what are the barriers? How do we tear down the barriers? And how do we get people plugged into these careers that could really, really change their life? So we're excited about the SCOT, which stands for School to Career Opportunity Task Force.
Well, one thing I'm particularly happy about, and it goes to one of the cultural things of Rochester is now the Red Wings are set with ESNL for an awful long time, and
Yes, so ballpark. Yes, great,
I
great.
I know that took a lot of work on your side to get that done. I mean, I talked to Naomi on. As a matter of fact, if you look there's a Naomi bobblehead if you see
Yeah,
over
that's
there.
right.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
also have a Naomi bobblehead here in my office as well.
yeah. And
You just
that's
can't
from
see it.
no, but you know what the funny thing is, or the ironic thing is that that is sponsored down there by your feet. The sign says ESL, and that's from years ago.
That's
So
right.
that must have been prophetic. But that's a really nice thing to know that's set in stone with the stadium for an awful long period of time with an organization that is just woven into Rochester.
Well, the
Wonderful,
Red
like
Wings are
ESL
great
too,
partners
you
for
know.
us.
Yep.
We're partnering with them on one of our Summer Soul concerts that's going to be on there, Clean Sweep, et cetera, et cetera. We're always partnering with the 250th with the county
Mhm.
is over at Red Wings Ballpark. So it's a great place that not only does baseball, but they also do so many other community events that
Oh,
take place
absolutely.
there. I'll be there
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
veterans event. I'll be there for a young people that are going into the armed services. That event I think is next week that I'll be at. So I'm there. I'm there at that stadium. More times than I can count throughout the year, doing great events.
And I haven't mentioned it yet, but we have 55 minutes of non-commercial time on this show, in part because my presenting sponsor is the Rochester Red Wings.
Well, there you go. So great. You got a great presenting sponsor for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
An
And the thing is,
institution in Rochester.
well, the thing I talked to Naomi and Maury about is that, and Dan, is that they understand what their product is. Their product is entertainment, engagement, community support, and a feeling of joy from coming to a event that happens to be at a baseball park.
Well,
It's not, you don't go and say, well, where's the team? Are they winning? Or are they losing? You go there because you love the Red Wings.
and it's an experience. I mean, you get in, I tell people all the time, I go to major league ball fields. I love sporting events. I mean, I go to sporting events all around the country. Um, I think that our ballpark is one of the best in the country.
Oh, absolutely.
In terms of the food options, I mean, we have some of the best. If you want good food, you go to our ballpark. I mean, you can go there for a meal. I mean, and then just the events. There's always events. The games are great. Every seat is a great seat, and it's why I've committed to making the county executive and I have committed to making sure that we keep that stadium up to par and nice, and we're committed to that, and we're going to continue to commit to that. We've lobbied the state to make sure that we keep that ballpark a solid place because it is really a gathering place in our community.
Well, a little bird told me to ask you, vacuum oil cleanup, restore the shore. Is that
That's a huge.
I haven't heard that before, but
That is a huge. It's one
like
of the most ambitious projects that I'm undertaking.
yeah.
For 100 years, the vacuum oil site was contaminated. Vacuum oil site became ExxonMobil, and for 100 years, literally 100 years, it was a contaminated site that neighbors in the community wanted something done with it.
Mhm.
We finally worked with ExxonMobil to get that cleaned up. The cleanup is done. The contaminated building is now down. And now we're looking at 18 acres of the developable land on the water edge, which is the shore there,
Mhm.
that abuts behind the University of Rochester. So this will be probably one of the most transformational projects that I will work on during my term as mayor. And we are just so very, very excited about it. And the sky will be the limit in terms of what will be there. We will be restoring that shore, which is the water that's there, but we're also going to make sure that we build things there that will have a great benefit for the community and the neighborhoods that are there. So we are very, very excited about that.
Well, since we're talking about like baseball and whatever, I'll keep on sending you softballs here. How about the corner there on Main Street in Clinton or whatever?
Well,
Oh man, finally.
finally it's done, and we got
Yeah.
a ribbon cutting in a couple of weeks there to mark the to cut the ribbon on the beautiful buildings in that corner. That was a priority of the first term, and we made it happen. It's an example of getting something done, and I
Yeah,
focused
yeah.
on that my first month in office. I said I promised folks that I was going to do it, and it makes me feel good every time I drive by it to know that I had a hand in pushing through that. But you talked about collaboration. That's collaboration. That was the
Yeah.
state of New York, city of Rochester, home properties, and ESL. I can name so many organizations that were a part. The New York State Department of State. So many organizations that were a part of me making that a reality, and it's a reality because of us coming together. And now that corner is now beautiful. It is no longer an abomination and embarrassment in the center of our city.
Yeah, the other I don't know, like I said, I'm a non-combatant here. So NIA grants.
Yeah, so that's our Neighbors in Action program.
Ah,
It
okay,
stands
that's what
for Neighbors in
NIA
Action,
stands for.
which
Okay.
means purpose. We thank ESL and the Community Foundation and the City of Rochester banded together because I'm all about not identifying a problem, but over 70 community-based organizations that have come up with community-based programs to solve issues in their community, and they get seed grants in order to do that, and it forces them to come together. So the idea of that program is to get people off Facebook and social media and get people to meet face to face. And that is what this grant program is about. And you'd be amazed what $5,000 or $10,000 could do for a community organization. They're able to do transformative things in their community. So we have, this is the second year of this. NIA is Swahili for purpose. And the question is, what is your purpose? And the purposes are these great grants that we're seeing.
Okay. So with that, I'd like to ask your indulgence in me doing a little self-promotion.
Yeah, sure. And then I got to run because I know I got to get to the
I know you do this. We'll take no more than a minute or two. I'll let you know what I've done in the past year. Okay. There are a couple of different things. One, I wrote a book about how to buy a car and not get taken. Okay. And actually that's the name of it. It's know what your dealer knows, and don't be taken for a ride. And it's not bashing dealers. Okay. It's just telling people how to pick a good dealer from a bad dealer, what you need to do to accommodate that. And what I'm doing is that, I'm giving the books away for free to charities. And we just raised $1,500 for the Rochester Rotary Sunshine Camp by giving a presentation at the Flight Wine Bar. And I donate the books. People can charge for the books that they want and give the money to the charity that they're dealing with. And it's just good for everybody. The other thing is I started this thing. It's like the mafia, the Bills Mafia. It's called the Rochester Music Mafia. And it's just like the Bills Mafia. We have 2,400 people in it right now. It's a private group, and it's only supposed to do good things. We had, I don't know if you remember Butch Roll. Butch Roll was he was a tight end for the Bills back in the 90s. And,
back in the day. Yes.
Back in the days. Yeah, he is a member, and we're giving $1,000 scholarship to somebody in Rochester soon with that. And I'm looking for people to join that. I have 2,400 members, which is about the capacity. What is the capacity of the Kodak Hall at the Eastman Theater? So there's a little commercial for.
There we go. Good thing.
A little commercial for me since you're on the show, and I don't get a chance to see you all that often.
That's right. And you're doing your stuff in your part of the world, which is important, which we all always ask everyone to do. What is your part? And you're doing your part, and I appreciate it.
Well, and I'm going to sign off with that. If there's anything I can do to help the cause, just let me know. Let me know. I believe in Rochester. I believe in this area. I love this area. The show and what I do without, like I said, I'm not making money on this. I'm just doing it because I love to do it.
I think, care about the community.
I think everybody has their talents. I think maybe my marketing talent is what I can contribute. So, Malik, thank you ever so much for your friendship and your relationship and the way you are. And hopefully you can come on before it's another year. So.
That's right. We got to do it. We got to do it before the end of the year again. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you soon out and about in the community.
Oh, yeah. Invite me to that ribbon cutting.
That's right. We'll see you. Hey, come on out.
I'd love to be there. Okay.
Yeah, we'd love to see you, Dom.
Thank you so much.
All right. Yeah. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
See you soon. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. You can find our previous shows at nononsenseroundtable.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll make more.